Hi, my name is Dave Peaty. I am the board chair of Berkeley Disaster Prep Neighborhood Network, also known as The Network. We're an all-volunteer nonprofit that's been around now, I think, about a dozen years. And basically what we do is to work with individuals and neighbors to better prepare and respond to disasters. And the way that we do that mainly is about getting them to kind of connect with their community, right? We're firm believers that we as individuals and we as households need to really prepare for disasters, but our number one kind of mission is that we get across the message that the best thing that you can do to save lives, to prepare for disasters, is to connect with your neighbors, to have a creative, resilient community, whether that's on like the household level or the neighborhood level or the larger community level. That is really what tends to help us get through disasters. And we're very involved with Berkeley Mutual Aid. As a result, we sort of act as an umbrella organization for them. And they're an organization that's sprang up in response to the COVID disaster. We firmly believe that that's what happens in disasters. People step up for each other, and we're just all about being better at that. And so that's what we do. So that's enough about BDPNN. Today, what I'm hoping to do is talk about the free emergency GoKit program. And what I'm going to do that is actually go through the GoKit itself, kind of go step by step, what's in there, but also talk about what's not in there, and also talk about how these GoKits fit in with a larger disaster preparedness program. I'm going to take I aim for 20 minutes. I've yet to hit that mark. I'm going to try to be as efficient as possible with that. And usually we sort of save time at the end for Q&A, but we have a small group today, so we're going to just have, if questions come up, we're just going to deal with them right then, which I think is a really good way to do it. So we're going to start with the actual kit itself, the backpack. This is what you will get, it's the backpack. I think is a pretty good one. We're pretty happy with it. We got a good deal on it, and I think it's pretty strong. We basically have built 1,750 of these GoKits, we only had one so far that seemed to have damage that we had to replace. So they seem pretty sturdy. You may decide that actually this doesn't work for you for whatever reason. You may want one that has wheels on it. You may already have one that you like better. Recognize that this is part of your GoKit, the actual backpack itself. And like everything that we're going to talk about today, what we want you to do is think about your own personal situation, your own household situation, and how what's in here and what's not in here, modifying it for what works for you. This program is specifically designed for seniors and people with disabilities. And depending on what issues you may be having to deal with, you need to sort of think about, okay, how does content X or Y work for me or not work for me, and how do I need to modify that? So you'll notice I'm holding it with one hand. It's pretty light. We didn't put too much stuff in it. One, we only had a certain amount of money, and we wanted to do 1,750 of these. So part of it is just sort of a cost thing, but also we didn't want to make it so heavy that for some people it was going to be a struggle. And you're going to be adding your own stuff to this. So weight and content is going to be something that you're going to be thinking about as well. And so if you have to evacuate, and if you have to evacuate and you're not in a car or whatever, and you're going to have to lug this thing around, be thinking about the weight issues. I know that my personal GoKit is way too heavy. I have to kind of reassess this. And we may even go through my personal GoKit at some point just to kind of check it out. Okay, so we're going to start with what appears to be the most boring part of the GoKit, which is the paperwork. But in some ways, it's the most important because really it helps guide you through the process of putting this GoKit into a larger context of disaster preparedness. So this might not be exactly look like what you have in your GoKit when you get it. We have smaller versions. We have them in Spanish, a number of different languages. But I think this is the large print version. And This is from a California program called Listos, which makes it sound like it's a Spanish language only program, but it is not. Listos means ready. They just like the way that it's what it means. And basically what this does is kind of guide you through the process of gathering all the information, doing all the work to prepare for a disaster. And I think there's a huge advantage to going through that very manual process of doing that. We tend to kind of rely on things like our phones to have all the numbers that we need, but if you don't have a phone, it either gets lost or broken or out of power. You really should have something that you can refer to, and this helps you guide you through that process. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you can do that when you get it, but this is really a vital part of the whole process. Okay. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the other piece of paper, which is the one that we created, BDPNN. It has our logo here at the top, and it's two-sided, and it's basically talks about what is in your GoKit, and on the back, what's not in your GoKit. So this is really important. First of all, remember that these GoKits were put together by volunteers. We did have some quality control work in there, but really you should make sure, did I really get what I'm supposed to be getting? And so I'm going to be using this list today to kind of go through everything and make sure I'm covering everything, but you should be doing the same thing when you get your GoKit. I've had a number of people reach out to me and say, I didn't have X, I didn't have Y. And the good news is, for the most part, we have some extras of everything in there. If not, it's not critical. You can probably supplement with a lot of the stuff with stuff that you have in your home. Okay, so again, this I think is going to be the other thing that really guides you through the process of managing your GoKit. What we really don't want you doing is getting the GoKit and just putting it someplace and not thinking about it anymore, because it really needs your attention to make it work for you. It's super easy to do, to get this kit and to just say like, oh, now I'm done, I've got the kit. But that's definitely not the case, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So I'm going to try to be relatively quick and efficient about going through this. The other piece of paper that's in here is a map. It's the Berkeley Path Wanderers map. If you are not familiar with the Berkeley Path Wanderers, they are an amazing organization that have been working for a number of years to uncover, restore, and revitalize the more than 150 paths that are in the Berkeley Hills. The great thing about that is that they can be used as an alternate evacuation route if streets are crowded or you're blocked off or whatever. It's not going to work for everyone. Most of them are probably not wheelchair accessible. But the great thing about this map is not only does it have the map of the paths, but it's just a great map of Berkeley. And for those of us who have come to rely on our phones for GPS, we may all of a sudden find that we don't have access to that. And the great news is that for lots of us, we're like, oh, we know how to use maps. My kid, I think, has never had to use a map, and probably is going to be struggling with it. So open it up and take a look. It's a great map. But think about how this map might fit in with your disaster preparedness program, including, like, maybe some alternate plans for evacuation where you might meet up with your family if for some reason your home is no longer an appropriate place to meet. So that's the other piece of paperwork in here. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about comes with a piece of paperwork, and this is the priciest thing in the GoKit. Okay. So this is the V2 Voyager. This is one of those all-in-one kinds of things. I think if you tried to buy this online, it would be like close to $40. So as I said, it's the priciest piece in here. We did not pay that much for it because we got it in bulk. It's super complicated. I just want to be really upfront with that. This is something that you need to take out of your GoKit and spend some time with before an emergency. What you don't want to do is, when an emergency hits, try to figure out, like, what is this for and how do I use it? Because one, it's complicated, and two, in an emergency, you don't want to take the time to do that. And three, if you haven't done the work ahead of time to make sure that it's powered, it's probably not going to help you very much. This is what it looks like out of the box. And what's great is it comes with directions and instructions, but it's one of those little tiny things that is little tiny type. And one of our board members, Mike, did a great job of going through and distilling that and putting much clearer instructions for the basics of how to put this thing together and how to use it. And with color photos in there, and we printed it up and folded it up and attached it. So what's funny is we even sent it off to the company and they said, oh my God, this is great. And they love it. And I think they're using it now. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details on this because we could spend a half an hour just talking about this piece of equipment. What it is it's a radio, which is great. And 1610 AM on your radio dial is the Berkeley emergency channel. Note that it's an AM channel. Not all parts of Berkeley can receive it. I would say take it out and see if you get 1610 on your radio. I think it has like just a repeating message when there's no emergency happening, saying like this is a channel, you know, this station is reserved for this. So it's a weather radio, it's a siren, it has a flashlight, and it has a little solar panel on the top. You should know that that is not a solar panel that you can charge your phone with. You can charge your phone by using the hand crank on here, so what they call a dynamo. I'm not going to do that for an hour long to charge my phone. So I definitely am using something else to charge my phone. I think you need like a teenager to, you know, or like a group of them to charge a phone using that hand crank. But it is an amazing little tiny device that I think could come in very helpful. It comes in with a rechargeable battery and you need to charge it and you need to plug that in if you're using that. It also comes with a space for, I think, 3 AAA batteries. We have not provided those batteries. Batteries not included. So if that's another, you know, you need to spend time with that. Decide if you want to do that. What you don't want to do is put those batteries in this device. A little bit of moisture and they corrode and they ruin not only the batteries, but the device itself. So those should be stored separately, but you should familiarize yourself with how to pop them in easily because you don't want to be learning how to do that during an emergency, as I said. Okay, so that's the biggest, priciest component in there and the most complicated. If you have questions, feel free to email us at info@bdpnnnetwork.org, which is on our website, bdpnnnetwork.org. I'm just going to be using this list to go through the rest of the thing. So the next thing that we talk about and is one of the heavier pieces in here is this. It's a can of water. Very odd. You probably haven't seen cans of water before, except for shishi things. The reason that we included this can of water is that this can is rated for 50 years. You put this in there, you don't need to think about it again, it's done. There are some disadvantages of having a can. Once you open it, it's open. It's not a screw top plastic water bottle that you can recap. We thought about that and thought you probably can add that if you want. We're trying to avoid plastic anyway. So you may want to supplement this with that, but water is super heavy and we didn't want to put a lot in there. We just put this one item in there. The other thing is you may opt to choose to like buy more of these. I think you can pretty much only get it online. But we really like the concept of water that lasts for a really long time because water does go bad after about a year or two when it's in a plastic bottle, especially if it's exposed to light, which it wouldn't be in your GoKit, but something to think about. Okay. One of the things that's not on your list of things is something that was donated to us after the fact, after we printed up all of these sheets. Bayer donated something like $5,000 worth of pain relievers and things like that. So in your GoKit, probably, depending on when it was packed, you have like 4 different items from Bayer around pain relief and stuff. And you can kind of add that to the first aid kit that we'll talk about a little bit. I don't have that in my pack because my pack's from before that time, but you may find that in there and say like, what is this? It's the other thing that was donated to us, but is on the list, Cliff Bar. They're a local company, as you know, donated a ton of these energy bars for us. You should have 2 in your GoKits. I always like to say, you know, go in and take a look. You know, if you have peanut allergies and we gave you a peanut butter bar, that's not going to do much good. So see if this works for you. Supplement it with things that you actually like. If you don't like Cliff Bars or energy bars of any kind, we opted not to put in those army rations that last for like 50 years and they're like 5,000 calories and pretty much inedible, because we figure you should be sort of thinking about what is going to work for you. How much food do you want to put in here? Food is not something that necessarily is going to keep you alive. Obviously, it's important to metabolism and the stress that comes from being in a disaster. So you need to think about like what works for you. You know, some people like the gork, the good old raisins and peanuts. Know that probably whatever you put in there, you're going to have to cycle through every year or two because these do go bad. I don't know what the expiration date is on this, but think about that. We always say use the time change, especially the fall back one that we just had recently, for that extra hour to go through all of your emergency things and things like your smoke alarms and stuff, and make sure batteries are charged and all that. It's a great way to spend an hour that you don't usually have. And okay, so energy bars. The other thing that's super important, but a really minimal item in terms of size. This, believe it or not, I've never seen one before we got these in these GoKits. This is a whistle. Looks very different from the kind of whistles that I grew up with, but whistles can be super important in a disaster, especially if you're stuck someplace and can't get out, you're trapped, and are having trouble using your voice or whatever, or yelling out. There's a code to whistles. I don't know if you know this. Three blasts on the whistle means I need help. And so if you hear 3 blasts, you know that that's someone saying I need help. And then the other 2 parts of the code is 1 blast on the whistle means yes, 2 blasts on a whistle means no. So if someone's yelling questions at you and you don't have the capacity to respond in words, you can use the whistle to do that. Okay, so whistle, super important. This is an odd one. We just threw in a pen. Everybody's got a pen, but this is almost as a placeholder to remind you that you may need to have some way of communicating with people. I replaced this immediately with a big old fat Sharpie. We also didn't include any paper, so you may want to do that. I'll talk about it later, but I also supplemented my kit with duct tape, because duct tape is a great way to leave notes, either directly on the duct tape or to tape up pieces of paper. Things like, you know, meet you at the park. So the pen, odd, but it's a placeholder, reminds you to think about how you're going to be able to communicate with other people if you can't reach them by phone and text and all that kind of stuff. So good placeholder. The other thing that's in here is one of those light sticks. This is a chemical light stick. You don't need batteries. You don't need to have it charged. You just snap them open. And the great thing about these is they last about 8 hours, and they're really actually quite bright. It's pretty amazing, mainly to be seen, but also to see. So you may want more than one in there. You may want to supplement it. Okay. This is the medical kit that we put in here. It is very, very basic. If you are someone who has any kind of medical training, you will undoubtedly want to supplement it with something else, or you may have like your own medical kit already that you just want to swap it out for. This is really, for the most part, addressing minor cuts and scrapes and that kind of thing. It is not, you know, saving someone's life. The exception to that is the one item here that's in the very front, which is the clotting kit. One of the few things in a disaster where you can really save someone's life is if they have a serious, like a femoral artery cut or something, and they're losing blood. Stop the bleed is a way that you can really save someone's life. And this has coagulant chemicals in it that'll help you stop the bleed, as you know, applying direct pressure. I'm not going to go into great detail about how to use this. You can find out about it online, but I do want to point out that this is one of sort of the one kind of very serious piece of this emergency kit. Take some time to go through it. There's latex gloves in here and bandages. I'm not going to go into all the details. Just, I would say, go ahead and spend some time and decide, like, oh yeah, that's not nearly enough. I want to supplement it with. Again, you have to sort of decide what is going to be worth it for you. Okay, we have gloves in here. They're pretty basic gloves. They offer some protection, they offer some warmth, You can get gloves that are warmer. You can get gloves that are, you know, like heavy duty leather gloves that are, you know, pick up shards of glass and you don't have to worry about it. That's not what this is. Partly we just wanted something in there for hand protection, but you may want to supplement it with something that works. Plus, we also we wanted to get gloves that were kind of stretchy and would fit everyone, right? I have pretty big hands and they do work for me. So that's a good thing to have, but you may want to swap it out. N95 masks. So we are all now way too familiar with the importance of N95 masks. We used to put in kits the kind that had the valves. Now that we're in a pandemic, we're not doing that for obvious reasons. I really like these masks. They've got this soft bridge nose, which is really comfortable with the wire that helps it conform. This is also the kind that goes around your head, not as convenient for constantly taking off and on the way that I think a lot of us are used to now. But in a disaster, these are really better for people with hearing aids because they don't kind of get in the way. They're more around the head. There are two in there. These are the N95s. They're not the KN95s. They are like seriously, they're the right kind. So but you may have masks now that you like better than this. So again, think about what works better for you, but definitely good for smoke inhalation, that's for sure. Okay. This is a little odd. We have just some baggies in there. This does not mean that you didn't get something because they're empty. We just know that Ziploc baggies are really helpful to have in an emergency for any number of reasons that you may want to come up with. It could be for putting other things in, but also just into your GoKit, but also just to have as kind of a repository. The last two things, I think they're the last two things. One is a rain poncho. I used to joke, like, wouldn't it be great if we had rain for a rain poncho? But hey, we got some rain recently, so that's good. I think an added layer of anything. You can also use this to sit on wet grass while you're waiting to park for the rest of your family to join you. Ponchos can be used for anything. And then one of these Mylar emergency survival blankets. I remember I used to always look at these and think, okay, they're ridiculously thin. There's no way that that's going to help you. And then I happened to be on a bike ride from San Francisco to LA and I froze my tush off. And this thing, within 5 minutes, I have my body heat back up again. They're amazingly effective. I wouldn't have thought it, but they are. Okay, I'm going to double check my list, but I'm pretty sure that is what is in your GoKit, what you should be getting. If you're missing anything, reach out to us, let us know. Okay, I'm just going to quickly check. Yes, that's everything in there. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what is not in your GoKit. So there's a lot of stuff that you just may want to supplement it with, but mostly what I want to talk about is the personal stuff, the stuff that only you can put in for you, like nobody else can do. So one is sort of information about you and documentation. So you may want an ID in there, contact information for your important allies who are going to be there for you in a disaster, either locally or remotely. That's part of that Listos kit, is kind of identifying the people who are going to be there to support you, and how to get a hold of them, where they live. Pets. So I don't know if you're like me, we have dogs and cats, and they are an important part of our family, and it's important to make sure that you have information about your pets as well as ways to support them. So I have pictures of my pets so that I can show them if we somehow get separated, show them to people, and multiple pictures so that you can leave them at places saying, please contact me if you find this dog or this cat or whatever. Insurance and financial information. You have to sort of think about how much personal information you want to put in your GoKit. There's always a possibility that it could get stolen depending on where you keep it. If there's a way to keep it in there that's encrypted, you kind of have to make those decisions. But think about, if you are leaving your home, what information is going to be really important for you to have if something happens to your home and you can't ever get back into it. I mentioned that we didn't put a writing pad in there. I highly recommend that you have something to write on in there. Credit card information, all that kind of stuff. What I do is I keep my kit by my bed at night, and I put my wallet in every night. As you know, when I go to bed, I stick it in there, and I put my phone in there as it's recharging. So all that kind of informational stuff I kind of put in there. Spare keys to both your house and your car is probably a good idea in case you have to dash out of your house and you're leaving out the back door and the front door is where you keep your keys to your car or something. Think about that. You might want to put cash in there in different denominations, assuming that ATMs are broken or don't have power or whatever. People often ask me, how much money should I have in there? And that's such a personal question. I have no answer to that, really. I mean, $200 to someone might be the equivalent to $20 to someone else. So that's just something you have to figure out what works for you. We talked a little bit about batteries, right? The AAA batteries for that V2 weather radio charger, you might want to put there. And then we also, you can get these, battery chargers for your phone, right? Things, you have to charge that thing, keep it charged somehow, but it can charge your phone 2 or 3 times, and they're getting better and better. I don't have any recommendations to make because that technology is constantly evolving. Prices are, I think, coming down with each iteration. So you have to figure out how much money you want to spend on something like that. But for me, I know that my phone is super important, and to be able to charge it is really vitally important as well. Spare eyeglasses. If you need reading glasses, that's a pretty good thing to have in there. I put my glasses in when I go to bed at night in there. Some people take their old previous prescription glasses that they've gotten newer ones since then. They put their old glasses in there because probably while they're not going to be perfect, they'll be good enough to get by. And so that's a good use for those. Some people put safety goggles in there, depending on the nature of the disaster, could really help out. We have something called a multi-tool on this list, which is basically a Swiss Army knife. And I have my Swiss Army knife in there because it has a corkscrew, and that's going to be able to give me access to my emergency wine. Connectors, some people, like binder clips, carabiners, duct tape. I'm a huge believer in duct tape. It can be used for so many things. If it saved the Apollo 12 mission, it can save me. So I have a roll in there. The problem is sometimes they come in these giant rolls that are really heavy. That's probably not appropriate. I think you can get smaller ones, or maybe if you've got one that's started, you can try using that one as well. Again, we touched on a little bit on pets and making sure that you have support for them. You might want a leash in there. You might want some kibble. You might want some poop bags. Poop bags also double wonderfully, by the way, as water dishes. So think about your pets and specifically what they might need. We haven't put any toiletries in there. And the reason for that, again, really, it's a very personal decision as to what you might think that you need. And we figure you probably have toiletries to put in there, and for us to second guess what you might want, it's easier for you to put it in there. But we don't have anything that reminds you to do that, but we recommend that you do that. Some people put in clothes, right? A warm sweater or whatever, they tend to bulk up things a lot. You can buy those ice packs or heat packs. They're chemical, you break them open or whatever, and they warm you up, or they act as a cooling thing. Again, it's another thing that adds weight to your GoKit, but you may decide that that's something that's super important to you. Additional water we talked about. More first aid supplies we talked a little bit about. Food that you like. I highly recommend that you really think about food that's going to work for you. Again, that's something that you're probably going to have to cycle through. So that is what is not in your GoKit. This is by no means a complete list. You can find putting GoKit, emergency kit lists online, and they will have lots of things on here that's not in here. Just be mindful of how heavy all of this stuff is. As I mentioned, mine is way too heavy. It's great. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there, but it's a lot to lug around. So keep that in mind. You may want to switch to something with wheels, as I mentioned, the backpack. But that is it. That's basically my presentation on what goes into your GoKit and how you really need to think about how you're going to modify it for you. Let's talk just for a moment about where your GoKit lives. So it's hard to predict what kind of disaster you may encounter, and where your GoKit is may affect that, right? So I keep mine by my bed, and partly I work from home, so I'm going to be near there all the time anyway. I have a car that doesn't have a trunk, so if I try to keep it in there, it might get stolen. It's very, appealing. People don't know what's in here. It could be a laptop or something, and could get stolen. So, but my wife, she works up in Vallejo. She has a long commute. Her car is with her most of the time, right? So she keeps hers in her trunk because that seems to be a good, place for her. You may decide to keep yours by your front door, that the most pressing issue for you is a possible evacuation in a wildfire. Keeping it by the front door seems like, yeah, that's where I want to be able to grab something as I go. All of those are reasonable and legitimate, and you may even come up with other things. The GoKits are different from emergency supplies, like a big thing where, the rule of thumb is you're supposed to have a gallon of water per person per day, and you want to keep 3 weeks worth or something. That's like an emergency cache that you keep behind your house. That's not what this is. This is a grab and go thing that you're going to either take, with you to help you get out of your house, or, and relocate to some place else. It's not about sheltering in place. That's a separate thing altogether, and something you should definitely think about, but not something we're going to cover today. So that's what I've got to present. Do you guys have any questions, anything that you want to ask or share? I mean, I'm all about having a conversation about this stuff. I find that often I'm learning just as much from people who are attending as I am from the sessions that we do. I should be clear, I am not a disaster first aid expert. I'm not a professional responder. I'm a book publisher. I'm really just interested in community and how we support each other, both in disasters and outside. Steve, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself? And
yeah, one question on that, like pressure pad, anticoagulant pad is like that readily available other places to like buy?
Yeah, absolutely. That actually is easy to purchase. They do go bad after like 5 years. And so, that is something that you have to think about. The chemicals over time deteriorate or whatever. But yes, you can definitely buy those online. I think they used to have them at the Army surplus store, but that is sadly gone in Berkeley.
So it's not like a CVS thing.
CVS may have it. I haven't looked there. It's possible. It's possible.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? The one thing that we didn't discuss is getting alerted to information, which we could spend another 40 minutes on or whatever. We have whole sessions about them, but there are a couple of different programs that you might want to sign up for if you haven't already. One is AC Alert. AC stands for Alameda County. They provide alerts in emergency situations. And then Zone Haven is a new program that the city of Berkeley has opted into. You don't have to sign up for it, but you should learn to know your zone, because you will get alerts from the city of Berkeley via AC Alert in the event of a disaster that may be specific to your area. What the Zone Haven is basically about trying to have a more targeted approach to getting information out to the community. So you may get an alert that says like zone such and such, such and such, be ready to evacuate, in the next hour or whatever. And if you don't know your zone, then that's not going to help you out. So Zone Haven, you can Google it. We got a couple more raised hands. I'm going to start with Martha, and then we'll come back to Steve.
On the Zone Haven, do you register for that, and then they give you a map and you put your address in and they tell you your zone, or is it that simple?
It's actually even simpler. You do not have to register. The thing that you need to do is go to Zone Haven. I think if you Google it, it'll get to you rather than me trying to get the URL and getting it wrong. But you just need, it comes up with a map. You can put your zip code in or your address or whatever and find out which zone you're in. That's what you need to do. And you can add that, like, what is my zone, to that Listos kit, so that you don't have to remember it, because if your brain is like mine and it's a sieve. I happen to be lucky. I happen to be in zone 1 of Berkeley's BER -01 or something like that. So I know that I'm in zone 1. That's relatively easy to remember. But I think there are like some 50 zones or something in the city of Berkeley alone. So it's good to know your zone, but you don't have to register for it. What you do need to do is register with AC Alert, and it's through that you'll get that information.
Yeah, I've done that.
Steve?
I know this is a complicated question and maybe too much now, but we've had trouble in our neighborhood, getting our neighbors interested in anything. I mean, I guess like logical, well, I'm not interested in preparing for an emergency until the emergency. Any thoughts or tips on how to get them? Because, you know, I don't want to be the only one to be prepared, and I got to take care of them. What if I can't take care of me? Who's gonna do that? So any thoughts on that?
That's a great question. It kind of gets to the core of what BDPNN is all about, right? So we do have sessions about this kind of thing, and it's a long conversation. I'll do my quick spiel, which is to say that disaster preparedness within a neighborhood and a community is about building a trust within that community, and that's done outside or not just within the scope of talking about disaster preparedness, right? So San Francisco, for instance, has this amazing program where they do these, you know, they help fund these block parties. Berkeley isn't there yet. BDPNN tries to support that kind of thing, but first of all, it doesn't happen overnight. You can't trying to like knock on a door and say, hey, do you want to join this program? Give me all of your contact information, your email, your phone number, all that kind of stuff to someone you've never met before. That's kind of, a lot of people just aren't comfortable with that for obvious reasons. And so really it's about the sort of continued engagement to be there for your neighbors in a way that shows them that this is all about how we support each other. Like, you know, it's going to be, you know, you're not going to give your key to every neighbor, right? But you might, over time, feel comfortable enough with a neighbor to share a key so that if you ever lock yourself out, or if you're out and they need to check on your home or something, you feel comfortable. It's a similar kind of thing. People are only going to feel comfortable over time. And so I know that people who've tried to organize their neighborhoods get really frustrated because like, I've sent out, you know, flyers and nobody's responded. It's not an easy thing to do. I would say that, for instance, we throw a block party, and I firmly believe that it's my sangria recipe that has been the #1 thing that has brought our neighborhood together, rather than my disaster preparedness efforts, right? We do drills, we do all that kind of stuff. I would say on a given drill, maybe like 1/5 of the neighborhood turns out, but we do get some change and overlap and different people coming over a period of time. And you just have to create a space for people to come into. You can't force people to do it. You just have to make sure that people understand, like, this is what a community is about. And if you want to be a part of a community that's both resilient and is there for each other in a disaster, because people do step up in disasters. I mean, that's the thing that's amazing, right? That even the people who are resistant to being in a disaster in preparedness program are going to be there for each other. Hopefully they're going to take care of themselves first. That's what you should do. But you can't kind of sort of coerce them into that. But if you can get across that basically coming together to prepare for a disaster helps make a stronger, more cohesive neighborhood, then all of a sudden the fact that you're a stronger, more cohesive neighborhood makes you better prepared for a disaster. And it's wonderful kind of spiral up, as I say. It's really hard and it's frustrating because it doesn't always work. And I know lots of neighborhoods that have gone through the process of being, you know, creating a lot of sort of cohesive, and then it kind of falls apart, especially if there's one person who is making it happen and they move or whatever happens, or they get tired of being the only ones. So stay in touch with us. We have programs to help neighborhoods start off while we come and talk to neighborhoods about this kind of thing, but we also recognize that it's not an easy thing to do, and it does take time, and not everybody has time. You know, so Martha,
I need to run, but thank you so much. This was really a good discussion, or presentation, I should say, and I need to check. I know one of my neighbors has already done this, so I need to just poke around and find out who's.
Great, great. Well, thank you. And
might
please
own
let
network.
everybody know about this program and enjoy this beautiful, beautiful Saturday.
Right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for everything. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.